Hello and good afternoon. This is your host, Ebony Walden, with a new podcast called Black Beyond Borders, where we'll explore repatriation stories of African descendant folks that have decided to return to their country of origin and or their country of heritage. I'm so excited to have my first guest, Luisa Batiz, who is in Honduras and has a retreat center called Nuguchu. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Got
Nuguchu.
it right. Third's a charm. Louisa, welcome. So excited to have you. First question, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Ebony, thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me and have an interest in my story. Um, I always start off telling people, there's this quote I actually saw on Instagram where it says like something like my parents left the village for a better life, and I decided to return to the village for a better life. So I'm
Amen.
Louisa. Yeah, I'm Louisa. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Both of my parents are Garifunas from Honduras. And for folks that don't know who the Garifunas are, I'm gonna keep it short for right now, dive deeper as we continue talking. But the Garifunas are basically a maroon community in Central America. And so my parents are from Honduras. I actually spent a lot of my summers down in Honduras, but I was born and raised in Brooklyn. And just I basically was like the classic bootstrap story. Like any immigrant family, I think would be really proud of me if I was like their child. Like, my parents came to the country looking for a better life. I decided to do all of the things, went to college, graduated from college, got a master's degree. I was a teacher for a number of years before I transitioned into administration and became a director of recruitment. And then from there, throughout the transition of just like moving through all these different spaces, I just got burnt out and I
Mhm.
got tired of capitalism, really just kind of got drained and bogged down by like the system that I was in. And when I kind of went down to basics, I was like at a basic level, we all want access to food, shelter, and adequate like education. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
like where it started from. And then I decided to move into like just kind of started to just dive deeper into my relationship with Earth and
Mm.
a need to just be connected to the land. So that's like this is like a simplified version of like part of my story of like what ended up
Yeah.
getting me back to Honduras. But essentially what I wanted to do, like after I kind of got burnt out, and this was probably about six. Dang, time has gone by so quickly, but this pre-pandemic. So this was like 2018, 2019 when I really started to get burnt out. And I was like, you know what? I just need to go and get like a piece of land and go farm somewhere. Didn't know
Mm.
nothing about farming. Like I started to kind of grow a bit on like my rooftop in
About that, you're like,
Best-Stuy.
I'm going somewhere and doing something different. I don't know now, but I learned.
Nothing. I was like, I don't know how to grow a tomato. I don't know how to grow nothing. I
Wait, were
just
you in New York at the time that you
I
started
was
to
in New York when I started growing. I literally just went to Home Depot. I have a space out in
go?
Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. So I went to Home Depot and I just like picked up some pots and some seeds and some soil and then just kind of got started from there. But I was like, if anything, if shit hits the fan, what you need access to is food
That part.
and
That's what my friends
shelter.
always say. We need to know how to grow our own food. So when this zombie apocalypse come, right, you can make your own food or whatever else
Exactly.
happen, right?
Exactly. So I would say like part of my journey did start from like a space of fear where I was like, you know what, I just need to just get out of the matrix. Over time and over my journey, I realized like the matrix is actually a state of mind. It's not an
Mm.
actual place or location. It's a frame of mind for the most part. So yeah, that's where basically my journey took me to. I feel like I kind of touched
Okay,
upon a
yeah.
lot
I'm
of
like,
different
okay,
places.
let's rewind. Last time I checked, you was at Home Depot, and then
Yes, so I went to when all of this stuff got started. Also, I just had a child, so I do have a little bit of mom brain
no,
right
take
now.
your time. How did you get to Honduras? So you started growing in New York, and
So
then you
yeah, so I started growing in New York. In short, I got burnt out from the work that I was doing in education. At the time, I was a director of recruitment, managing about 15 schools. And it was like really powerful work and I really enjoyed it. However, I just kind of realized that that wasn't where my greatest impact would be. And if I
Hey,
had to
come
think
on now.
about like what was like the most looming issue that we have as a collective, I actually believe that it's the climate and
Mm,
the shift that's happening right now on Earth. Like I think we're so disconnected from nature right now that nature is returning and is coming back to actually show us like a lesson. And
mm,
so for me, it was like, how can I get reconnected? How can I become a steward again of the earth? And so I had some funds that I had like in a retirement account, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know what's going on right now, but I feel like what I want to do is actually just take cash out, take the money out that I have, and look into getting some land. I knew
okay.
for me what was important when I decided to look for land. I knew that I wanted to be around other people of color. Um,
Hey, that's
yeah.
my mo.
Yeah, I was like, I know I want to be around like other people of color, but I decided to like look around other places. So I didn't just like quickly just land to Honduras. It actually took me like a little bit of time to get to that place. Because I also knew too, like I was like, right now, capitalism is still happening. So I have to find a way to survive in capitalism. So if I want to have a space where people can also use as like to host retreats or just to come and stay, like I consider different spaces. And so Honduras wasn't on my radar because I was like, I feel like Honduras is a really hard sell. Like most of the times people when people
Mhm.
think of Honduras, people think of danger and
Yeah.
all of these other things. So like I went to Mexico for some time, went to
Okay.
different parts of Mexico, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. I love Mexico. Went to Costa Rica, considered doing something out there, even looked at places in New York too, and considered like Dutchess County and other areas. However, like the one piece that was just kind of like missing was like I didn't see a lot of Black folks there. I actually ended up taking a trip down to Honduras towards the end of like 2018. And I went out there and on our way like to my mom's village, my uncle told me you should buy a sack of bananas and a sack of oranges. And I was like, why would I do this? Why would I buy this? We have all of this in abundance, like in the village. He's like, no, not no more. Like people are not really growing food like that. So many folks have left the village. Like, a lot of people, you see like the immigration story and all of the folks coming, like
Trying to get out.
trying to get out and stuff. So there have been like just a lot of brain drain within Honduras, and a lot of the youth are leaving, looking
Mm,
for economic opportunities. And so like folks weren't necessarily growing food as much because most of the villages have a lot of elders there right now. And so the elders are no longer kind of tending to their land. And so just when I went out there and I saw like what was going on, like I was like, something's off here where there's so much richness here. However, like people are fleeing because they're looking for economic opportunities. And I don't knock folks that are fleeing like their homelands, looking for like ways to create more resources, like in abundance for themselves. But something about that, like it just kind of called me back, and my spirit was like, no, you actually need to come to Honduras and come back home. Like if you're gonna create something and actually like spend money and do all of these different things, do it with your people. The other thing too for me was I just kind of felt like I I just felt like there was just like a bit of like a disconnection. Like I think a lot of times like we're looking for resources and opportunities, but we don't like always see like the resource and opportunities in our own places. Like I think I saw somewhere,
yeah.
I don't know if it was Putin, but he said that Africa was basically like a graveyard because they come down like I don't know what the direct quote was, but he said like
Mm,
the people like they leave and they only go back to Africa to get buried, like where there's like a lot of wealthy folks that they leave the country to go to Europe and then they come back to get buried. And it was also kind of similar like in the villages like
mm,
in Honduras where it's like what everybody's goal is to go down there and retire. Like my mom has a home down there and it's like we work, 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 work in these Western places, and then we're gonna come back and retire. And so it's basically like folks just are basically going down there to like spend their last days. And so it's
yeah.
like, how do we actually shift that? Just kind of like almost like build a bridge between like the West and the rest of the world. And that's kind of like what ended up kind of shifting my vision. And I decided, you know what, I'm actually going to come down to Honduras. When I decided to go down to Honduras, I checked out different places within Honduras and I ended up landing in an area called Tela. Tela is about an hour and a half away from the airport. I'm also in an indigenous village as well, in a Garifuna village. I jokingly tell people it's kind of similar to like a Native American reservation because you can only get
Oh,
property there if you are Garifuna or right now, or you have to be of African descent. So they're not willing to like give land rights to people that are what I call like mestizos. Mestizos are basically what people would consider like if you saw them walking down the street, people would say, those are Spanish people. Like, I don't think people look at me and say I'm Spanish.
Latinx, yeah, Latinx
Yeah,
folks, yeah.
I don't consider myself Spanish or any of that, but I don't think people would look at me and say, like, oh, that person might have family from Latin America. But
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get what you're
yeah.
saying. So, how long have you been there now?
So I have now been in Honduras since basic 2021 is when I started to go
Okay.
down there, and then I started building. I started building at towards the end of 2021.
Okay. So
Mhm.
before we go into, which I want to get into your business because I think it's amazing your retreat center that you're building there. I will tell folks about because a lot of folks don't know about Garifuna culture and people.
Yeah.
Here just to kind of say like people are like, what are you talking about? Give us a little insight into the people
hmm
culture, a little bit about the
Uh,
history.
yeah, of course, of course. So the Garifunas, if you don't know who they are, I strongly recommend that you actually look them up. So in short, there was a slave ship that was on its way to save St. Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
And when it got to the coast of St. Vincent, basically the ship kind of like crashed, and the people that were on the ship basically fought the slave masters that were there, and then they fled the ship and ended up living in St. Vincent with the native folks for many years. And this happened in the 1700s. And so in about it was like around like the late 1700s that the British decided to come to St. Vincent and basically colonize St. Vincent. And
Mm.
so for 5 years, the Garifunas actually fought a war with the British for 5 years. Eventually, they lost the war and then they got exiled to islands off the coast of Honduras. And this was in 1797 that this happens. They got exiled to islands off the coast of Honduras. They were basically sent out there to die. Like they were like, we're not even trying to enslave these folks. Like they too
Just go.
radical. We just gonna ship them off
Go.
and like hope to wish them well. They actually first started off on an island. Can't remember the name of the island, but it wasn't. People say like the Garifunas arrived in Roatán. That's actually not where they went to first. They went to the island that was near Roatán. The island had no food. It was basically almost like deserted, and those people fled that island and then went to Roatán. And so it was about 2,000 people that ended up surviving that journey. And today they're now a nation of over 500,000 people across Central America and also in major cities in the United States. And so I think that's
Yeah.
just like a very powerful story, especially for folks across the diaspora. When we hear the
Yeah.
story of like enslaved folks, I think
Yeah. There's some
oftentimes it's like,
self-determined folks that's
yeah,
like, yeah, it's
very
not
self,
happening.
there's strong self-determination, but I also think too is that they kind of almost like paint the stories as if like enslaved folks were docile, where it's like no, like they were rebelling left and right. And there were so many rebellions, but you only hear about like a few rebellions that happened, where it's like there's a whole nation of people in
Yeah,
Central
500,000
America,
people because of these two.
500,000
That's
people,
amazing. So
half
I
a
found
million
out
people.
about yeah, so I found out about the Garifuna folks because I was in Guatemala. So I went
hmm
So I've been all over. I think I told you I've been to like 43 countries, all 50
Yeah,
states, six continents. And so I went on a around the world trip about 14 years ago. My first stop was Guatemala. And so we were touring around Guatemala and we went to Livingston. And I'm
yes,
like,
La Bu.
right. So exactly
hmm
what you said of like my concept of what a Guatemalan looked like is like, a mix of like of Spanish and indigenous folks, right? Latinx folks. And then I'm like, where are these black people coming from? I had the best, it was like Garifuna soup, coconut curry soup I've ever had in
As
my
you
life.
have
It was
machuca.
like
You have
it was so it
machuca.
had a fish head in it, and it was like
Yes.
90 degrees outside, but it's like the best fish I've ever had. I have a picture of it. Fish head, and I was like, first of all, where these black people come from? This food is amazing, and it was so intriguing to me because it like was a shift in my brain like that. It was not what I was expecting. Then of course, I've been to Belize and I've been to other places, and you're like, okay, there is a whole group of people, particularly on the coast, that are a people group that have their own culture, that are connected that we just like know nothing about. So when I saw that you were Garifuna, I was like, this is really, really cool because I have a connection that
Okay.
particular, yeah, girl, I'm telling you, it was 90 degrees. You know how I'm sweating, but I'm like, this
Yep.
is so good. It was like a coconut curry kind of.
Yes. Yeah. So everything is made with, I always say like a lot of Garifuna cuisine, a lot of the stuff is made with coconut.
I love it.
Yeah. So
Love
our
it.
rice and beans made with coconut. The soup that you have is machuca, or people call it hudutu, and Garifuna, because the Garifuna is the name of the people, but it's also the name of the language as well.
Oh, okay. So it's a separate
Yeah,
language.
yeah. It's a separate language. So that's why Nuguchu, the name of the space that I have, that's how you say mother in Garifuna.
Okay.
And for me, it was like basically my way of like one honoring like women, because it was my grandmother who essentially gave me like the vision and the idea to even get started and do something down in
Mm.
Honduras. Kind of piece. I told you a little bit about the story of me heading over to the village where my family's from, and like realizing that folks are no longer like growing food, like people are in the machine, and rightfully so. I'm not knocking folks for what they do, but I definitely feel like as a people, especially as African people, like we were supposed to be the stewards of nature. And so I do believe that it's our responsibility to come back in so many different ways, but we're supposed to come back to the land. And so Nuguchu was just like my way of just like honoring like our mother, and our mother is nature. That's our mom. Yeah.
Amen. So tell us what you're doing then. So 3 years ago, tell me a little bit more about Nuguchu and like your hopes, your dreams, where you are in your process. You moved, you bought some land, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what?
Yep, yep. So I decided to get some land. And even when I say like I have land, I'm even cognizant of that too. Because even in my
Right.
culture, it's like I'm a steward of this land.
Yeah,
Like I don't even
absolutely.
technically own the land. It's like I'm in a village. Once again, it's kind of similar to like a Native American reservation. So in Central America, particularly like in Honduras, the Garifuna people tend to have the rights to the land that's on the coast. And so like that's why in Guatemala you find them in Livingston, in Belize, the same way, like we're along the coast, like we're a fisherman community, farming community. And so I decided to get like some property in a village, and I was only allowed to actually get that property because I'm Garifuna, or you have to be of African descent right now, where the place that I'm in. And so got a little under like half an acre of land. There was already a home that was there. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna build on this space that's already here. I'm gonna renovate the space, the land that's here, the little home that's here, and then I'm gonna build some more spaces so that I could like have people like come in and actually do like retreats here. And when I say like retreats, my retreats are slightly different because I think right now a lot of folks are interested in like the luxury retreats. I'm all about like actually getting back to nature and getting down like once again with the land and looking into like having a cultural immersive experience.
Yay, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
And I would say like the experience that I do provide folks, I've traveled all over the world. I've been to like almost every continent, like except Australia right now, and Antarctica. I guess I'd have no intention of going that far.
You know, you can go down to the coast of Chile and get on a boat, so you can go to Antarctica too.
Thank you for telling me that. I didn't really have plans of
You
being out
can,
there. I was like,
yes,
it's a little
yes, you
cold.
know.
But been all over the world, and I would say I don't think that there's an experience like this anywhere
Okay,
that I have been to thus
that's a
far.
challenge. Like, yeah, I'm gonna show you something.
Yeah, for me, it's like a very unique experience because like people get the opportunity to actually be like inside of a village, but then also too, I'm kind of like on the outskirts of the village near a nature preserve. So it's like really quiet. And like I mentioned, I kind of talked a little bit about this, but it's about like actually getting like connected again to the land. And so like everything that's there, like within this space, like it's basically almost like being off grid. When I say almost, is because and I tell people this all the time, I do steal electricity from part of the power line. So we're not fully necessarily running on solar, but we use well water, and then all of the waste that is produced like within this space, like we're responsible for basically getting rid of that waste. So when people do come down, like I usually like tell people like, hey, like whatever you're used to, like I need you to kind of like shift a bit. Like the power will go out here. We do have like generators and like jackeries and stuff like that, but power will go out. Like we're in the jungle, so like you may see a scorpion. You
Oh
may see a
Lord.
tarantula. Yeah, like we're in the jungle. Like you're not gonna really
Prepare
see it.
yourself.
Prepare yourself. I tell people, I tell folks like what to expect and anticipate prior to arriving, just because it's a different experience. I want to manage expectations for folks too. There's a lot of comfort. You will have the opportunity to return to yourself because it's very quiet. You see some cars pass by, but there aren't tons of cars passing by. Like you'll mainly see like horses and cows coming by, but you will be immersed in nature. And so the space is a little under half an acre. We have over 20 fruiting trees. So they're like 4 mango trees. We have 2 avocado trees. We have rose apple, cacao,
Mm.
guinepas, tons of coconuts. And the property across the street from me, they have an orange tree. So you could just go grab oranges. The property next door has soursop and breadfruit. And so like, the spaces are open, but like just everywhere. One thing I would say, like, of
Mm.
all of the places I've been to, like one thing I would say about Honduras kind of like takes the cake with like there's so many fruit trees and they're growing everywhere. Like you just see like sprawling mango trees in the middle of a junkyard sometimes. And they're just like
So
everywhere.
funny.
But even when it comes to like the junk, because I do tell people like there's a lot of plastic pollution here, and part of it has to do with like there isn't the infrastructure in place to kind of navigate some of the waste that's happening there. And
Yeah.
so like within my lifetime, like I've seen like Coca-Cola kind of like take over a lot of these spaces. Like when I was younger and I would go to Honduras, Coca-Cola was in a glass bottle. Sprite was in a glass bottle. Now it's all in plastic, but yet there's
Yeah.
no infrastructure to actually like
Of it.
get dispose of the plastic. And so that's a huge thing for me. Like I often talk about is just like the waste and where is it all going, especially
Mm.
when it comes to textile waste, like all of these different things. And in the West and in the United States, we don't see a lot of that trash because a lot of that trash, it's burned in lower income communities in
Mm.
places like Newark and the Ironbound. That's where a lot of the stuff gets burned, or like we literally like shipping our plastic waste and our textiles and all of that stuff. We're shipping it to Ghana. That's where our textiles are going. We're shipping stuff to Malaysia. They're literally like masses of trash like in the middle of the ocean. So we don't necessarily see it there. But when you go to like these other places where like certain infrastructure is in place, you see like really
Yeah.
like what the impact is of like our waste and our usage. And
Yeah.
so when people come to the space, it's an opportunity to just kind of like unlike just kind of get more in tune with like the earth and just seeing like the whole cycle and the entire process, but you also get time to really spend time with yourself. And so in terms of like lodging and accommodations, there are 2 small studio apartments that we have. And so there's 2 full-size beds in the space, small kitchenette area, and a bathroom with a shower. I think it's pretty comfortable being there, especially given that it's like off-gridish, but it's not necessarily as like, I wouldn't say like, I would put it kind of like in between like being in a space. I would say, I'm trying to find the right word. It's not as hard as like camping. That's what I would say. It's not as hard as camping. The space is really beautiful and very comfortable,
Like
but
a cabin experience. Like,
yeah, it's like a cabin experience just because of like the location of where we are. Like if you turn the lights on and it's nighttime, there'll be beetles and stuff that'll come flying. They'll be attracted to the light because
yeah,
there
it's like
isn't
a
much around us. It's like there's a whole bunch
yeah,
of
where that
like
light come
trees.
from? That's funny.
Yeah.
So I want to get into like what's your experience been moving back, but like give me 2 sentences for folks listening. What will they get when they come to visit? Nuguchu? Like, what do you want people?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want people to
Um, it's
experience?
it's it's a cultural immersion. So when people come to the space, there are tons of like beautiful fruits that you get to try out. My favorite thing to do is like help people identify different fruit trees because just walking through the
Oh yeah,
village,
that's
there's
fun.
just food to eat. The space, I primarily cook vegetarian and plant-based foods in this space because I want to like show people like this is how you can actually live off the land. And
I
I
love.
personally love to make beautiful plant-based foods that are delicious that people can enjoy. And I like to use a lot of my culture into a lot of those foods. And so there's different things like I mentioned when it comes to Garifuna cuisine, we do a lot of things with coconut. So I do some renditions of machuca and hudutu that are plant-based. However, like I do encourage people to also enjoy the food that's in the local village. And so there are like different champas and experiences that people can have. Our music is off the chain, like Garifuna music. Like once you hear the drumming and the rhythm, you definitely get entranced with the music and just like the connection. And so
I
even if
like
people
that.
want to have a good time, that's also a part of the experience too. When I say a good time, it's like you get the chance to really dive deep into yourself because it's quiet and you get to just be immersed in like nature and the beach. We have where the beach is about a 10-minute walk from the space, but
Ooh.
you also get time like if you wanted to like party and turn up, like that's one thing I tell
Oh,
people all
come
the
on,
time.
turn up.
Garifuna people know how to turn up and have a good time.
Is there like a best time to come? So I know I visited your website and you're like maybe a couple times a year you have weeks where people can come.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time to come? And may have you have like Garifuna Day or something of that
Yeah,
nature?
yeah, yeah. So,
Time to it to best immerse yourself or based on weather or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I tell folks, there are different time periods that are pretty like, I would say a lot of things are going on like within like the village and community. So we do have like Settlement Day. We do a celebration of Settlement Day that happens in Belize in November. However, our Settlement Day in Honduras is in April. Also around April is like Semana Santa, which is Holy Week. Christianity took over like the whole globe. And so like people are like really into Catholicism. So when Holy Week is going on, which is like usually in the spring, that's the time period where the place is very festive. And the same thing in December is a very festive time. But if you're like me and not really interested in being around when the area is packed, I recommend people
Yeah.
actually come during this time period, like in the
Okay.
fall or in the
Okay.
summer. Things are still going on, but it's not necessarily like if you come in April and it's Semana
It's
Santa,
not
then
like
it's
a
like, yeah, like the
spring
beach
break.
is packed with people versus like during this time
And
period, if you go and walk to the beach, you're gonna eat some beautiful sea grapes, which are some of my favorite fruits, and the beach is practically empty and it's just for you.
that
So like
sounds
there's different time periods to come.
okay, good. So tell me, like, so you've been there 3 years. Tell me your biggest challenges and like the most joyous, like best and worst of like it's been hard. What are the top three things that has been hard for you to do? And then like what's been like the biggest benefits of
Mm.
learning and coming back to?
Yeah, so one of the challenges I had, especially coming back, and I tell people this all the time, especially for folks that are interested in like just moving abroad, is you have to decolonize yourself. You have to decolonize your mind and not show up to spaces with like a colonizer mindset. And so I'm coming from New York City, and the one thing that was
Wow.
like really challenging for me was like moving on like it's not an island, but people moving on island time and they
Yeah,
moving on like just
you're like,
everything slower. So like literally around noon, you know, people are sitting down eating lunch, like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. It's like, no, like we in lunch. We not working right now. So just expect
okay.
everything to be slower. And that was like a major adjustment for me initially, like just trying to get
Yeah.
things done and navigating that piece because I'm like, oh my God. Like I would go to the bank trying to like open up bank accounts and I'm like, why is the line so long? Why is this so slow? Like really coming in with like my New Yorker mindset of everything has to move quickly and like
Yeah.
I
I
had
mean,
to learn how to like
fastest
kind of
place
take
to
a
be in
beat.
the world.
Yeah, I had to learn how to take a beat. Like it's like, no, girl, like calm down. I think also too, people are a lot more communal. And so that was like the thing that was kind of that was the thing that was kind of different for me, especially coming from New York City where like things were very transactional, which I didn't realize how transactional I was. When I got
Mm,
down there, it's like even when I'm working with like the people that were doing construction, it's like no, people really want to know about you. Like when people ask you, how are you doing? Like they really want to know how are you doing? And
yeah.
so like just kind of getting adjusted to like the customs where it's like, no, we're gonna first talk about like our days, our families, and we're gonna have like a
You got to go
genuine
through
like,
all the things.
yes, we're gonna have a genuine connection with each other. And then we can begin to talk about like business or whatever spaces we're
Yeah,
navigating.
I get it.
Another challenge for me, this was a pretty big challenge, and I'm still kind of navigating this piece, but just being a woman and doing the work that I was doing down in Honduras, and also like at the time, like a single woman, all of that,
So
and
was
just
it
like the
like safety
sexism.
or was it sexism or
It was
both?
sexism. It wasn't like a safety thing. Like safety was something I did have like some concerns about. However, like I just trusted that like I knew that if I was doing this work, like God is guiding me in this direction. And I just kind of knew how to carry myself because I was like, I know I'm a young woman. This is not normal for a young woman to decide to
Mhm.
come down to Honduras and build at this time period. Like other women have done this stuff and have done this kind of work, but usually they're like a little bit older, they have other
Okay, yeah.
connections. And so it's like I'm here doing this work. So like I said previously, like if you want to have a good time, like there's space to go and have a good time and like, smoke and drink and all of that stuff. I was just kind of cognizant of me being like a single woman that I was like, you're not down here to like party right now because you have to be very cognizant of how you're showing up in these spaces because you need people
Yeah.
to take you seriously. And so like those are some of the things like just like arriving, like it was like prior to actually getting the space, I met someone else who had a they had an eco lodge in another area in Honduras, and
Okay.
they told me they were like, you're gonna be fine doing what you're doing, just whatever you do, don't talk to nobody's like boyfriend or girlfriend in terms of like dating. Don't get involved in
Don't
politics.
get on. Okay.
Don't get involved in drugs. That's what they told me. And so
You'll be
like for
fine.
me,
She
so
was
you'll
like,
be
I took
fine.
that to heart.
I took that to heart. I was like, you know what? People try to talk to me. I look the other way. I'm like, no,
You're on a mission.
I'm on a mission. I got work to do here. Like, I'm not here interested because people say, like, I want to date you. Next, they have a whole wife and child at home. I was like,
That part, yeah.
I was like, that's not like, I'm looking straight ahead. I'm not here for any of this stuff. I am here
But you
for a
did
mission
find
and work.
somebody there, or is your person from the US or
No, he's from the States, so he's actually a friend. He's my friend's husband's friend. And he was actually coming down to like do some work with me. He's been to the space too, but that's how we got connected. His
okay.
family's from Trinidad. And so I did ended up not like being with someone that's actually
Yeah, there
directly
you go.
from like the
You
community.
took it to heart. You're like, no,
I mean, I wasn't like I would say like there was a I'm a young woman, so I wasn't necessarily opposed to like dating people or any of that stuff. I just kind of knew that like I didn't want to necessarily like show up very like coquettish or flirtatious or any of that stuff
yeah, I get
because
it. Yeah.
it's a different culture.
Yeah.
And I'm also like I'm out of my comfort zone. Like I'm in an area where like I have a cousin that lives there. He's a local science teacher, but like I'm not from here, so I'm showing up with a lot of respect. And I do know that like some of the men out there, they may say like, "Hey, I'm single," but then they might have like other partners and stuff like that. So I was like, let me get a field of like what's
Yeah.
going on in my surroundings. I also didn't want to necessarily head out there and like be partying and drinking all over the place because that can happen. Like you can go there and have a good time. Like I tell people, I be like, my people love to have fun. So if you want to like smoke trees and go dancing and do all of that, you can do that every single day if you want. If you get with the right crowd of
Well, I
people,
mean,
you
you
can do
like
that
that's
every
not your
day.
goal, but you can do that if you want, right? So the
Mhm.
challenges of like culture, being a woman, how was it being like having spending so much time in the US, did people perceive you as like, oh, okay, you're somebody that's come home, or did they see you as like, okay, a foreigner at arm's length?
So I think initially I was kind of seen as like basically like almost like an American, but it was known like, yeah, she's American, but her family's from here. Because one thing about like going into like a Garifuna village and space that people could trace from your last name, they could trace where your family's from. And usually
Oh,
people are
wow.
connected to each other.
Okay, yeah.
And so like the moment that like I connected with any elder, like I would tell them, my family, my name is Luisa Batiz. My mother's in Ariola, and then I could literally go back generations and like tell them my different like lineage and be like, oh, my family
Oh,
is like Alvarez and Martinez, and people be like, oh, I'm also an Alvarez and a
oh, so
Martinez.
you
Or
have
I'll
that
say like I'm Centeno. They'd be like, I'm Centeno. Like and so like there's that connection. So although like yes, I am seen as like an American there, but it's well known that my family's from here and I have so many aunties that I've like met over time because they're like, "Oh,
Okay.
family's
Well,
from Sangre
and
Laya."
there's summers there too. So you have a
Not in that particular area. So the
okay,
area
okay.
that I decided to build in is not the
Oh,
area where like my immediate family is from.
okay.
However,
Yeah.
I do have relatives within the space, but once again, it's being Garifuna. Like we jokingly say that we're all cousins, we're all related, but we really are. Like we can literally trace our lineage
Yeah,
back to the ship,
those
that ship that first arrived in Roatán. So like I'm able to connect with folks and like tell people. So like I think over time, like when people kind of start to like when they started to get to know me more, and once again, I was like very particular about the way I was carrying myself, making sure that I was very respectful, not showing up from a place as if like I knew better. Because that's also the thing that sometimes I think Americans, when they go to certain spaces, they kind of show up with this like vision of like, I know better and I know all of the things you need to do here in order to solve your issues and problems. Whereas like I'm showing up from a place of like understanding and also recognizing like who are the leaders already in the community that's already doing the work. Like I'm not someone special, I'm not anyone new. Like what are some of the farming projects that are happening? What's happening here in like the local schools? So I showed up with that level of like humility. And
yeah.
also just like, so I came to the space like very much so like working on like decolonizing my own frame of mind. But I was also very cognizant of recognizing that people are already doing work within this space. I'm not any better than anybody here. It just so happens that like my mom gave birth to me in the
Yeah.
Western world, and so I have access to some resources. And so like I think that level of humility like has really served me when I showed up there. And I think that's something that's so important for people just like across the globe that definitely do decide to like repatriate, that you got to show with some level of humility and not from a place of like assuming that everywhere is going to be like the West. And I tell
That part.
people that too when they come to the space because it's like you're not in the United States anymore. So just like there's a different culture
Yeah,
here.
just let it go and be where you
Yeah.
are. Right? I'm
And
like,
show up with respect. So like I wasn't like I was just cognizant of that.
yeah, absolutely. So, two more questions and then I'm gonna wrap it up. Tell me your favorite things about being where you are in Honduras or Garifuna food or culture. Like, what are a couple of your favorite things, places to do, to eat? What are some of your
Yes.
favorites?
My favorite thing to do. We have a botanical gardens
Mm.
over in Tela, and I love going down to the botanical gardens. And along when you head over to the botanical gardens, there's tons of like fruit there. My favorite thing to do is actually try fruit I've never had before. And so
Mm.
I love eating mangosteens are like my favorite fruit to eat. So I love just grabbing the mangosteens and eating them. Like if you've never had a mangosteen, it's the best thing you will ever eat in
What
your
is it called?
life.
It's a different
It's
kind of
called
mango.
it's not a mango. It's called mangosteen. It's purple on the outside and it has
Ooh,
like these almost has like this green kind of like leaf on the top. You do not eat the purple part. It's very bitter, but you basically crack it open and there's this white like meat like flesh
wow.
inside of the fruit and it has like some seeds in it, but it's like really, really good. I can't even describe what it tastes like because it's not necessary. I can't, it's almost like It's almost like a tropical.
You gotta come try it.
You gotta just come try it. But there's like
So
so many different fruit that you can try, like durian. I don't really like durian. It's funky. But that's my favorite thing to do. It's like see what new fruit they have near the botanical gardens and just kind of grab and start to eat at different fruit. Because there's just so many like variety of fruits that, we just haven't seen growing up in the United States. And you kind of see like the same 20 fruits. And it's like there's so many variety of
oh my
fruits.
gosh, so it's an adventure.
Yeah, it's an adventure. That's one of my favorite things to do. Absolutely love when it comes to just like the cuisine and the food in Honduras. I love baleadas. So baleadas, that's like the classic dish of like Honduras. That's basically it is the basic baleada is basically a flour tortilla with beans and Honduran cheese. That's like a basic
Okay,
dish. But people sometimes add eggs and meat and avocado to it. So I definitely say go
that
eat a
sounds good.
baleada. I also love like the coconut bread that we have in the village. So when people come into the community, there's like a beautiful La Lucha bakery and it's like a bread stand and they make the bread using like the traditional oven. So it's made with like coconut milk, and then there's like different varieties of like sweet breads and stuff that folks can have. So I absolutely love like eating the bread. When people come to the space, I usually get bread from our local bakery and I do like different avocado toasts. And I use it
Ooh,
to make like different croutons and stuff for salads and all of that kind of stuff.
I love it. So do you do the cooking or you have somebody else do the cooking for guests?
I do a lot of the cooking, so I do get some
Yeah.
support, but I do a lot of the cooking, and the cooking is also something that I do communally with the folks that come down. And so like we'll cut up vegetables together and then I'll kind of
Okay.
like just go through like different recipes. When it comes to some of the traditional like Garifuna dishes, then I have someone else help me out with that. Cause do know how to make some stuff, but sometimes if my mom's around, then like she'll be there to kind of like
Yeah. Get
support with
into
some
it.
of that
Nothing like
stuff.
mom. Girl, you sold me. I was already wanting to come down when I first found it, but now it's definitely have an appetite to come down. I'm spending the next year kind of hopping around, remote working, and I'm specifically
Nice.
going to places across that diaspora, but only places where I have connected with somebody, right? That I know
Mm,
that's like, come on, I'm going to show you my place, my home, and I'm going to introduce you that. So I will be following up to try to figure out when's a good time to come down. And I'm doing some more filmmaking. I think it'd be great to just like spend a couple days with you, show me around, get your story kind of not just sitting down with you and talking, but through your
hmm
own lens and your own to just show us around your community. So stay tuned if you're open to
Oh,
that.
I'm definitely open. Thank you so, so much, Ebony, once again, for just like wanting to connect, wanting to know more about the people, the community, and everything that we have going on. I definitely feel like it's a vibe. And thus far, everyone who has shown up, they have like truly loved it. And they're like, you want a neighbor?
Yeah,
I'm like, we could
I
talk
love
more.
sociable immersion experience. Like I'm like you, I like a bit of luxury when I like it, but I'm going to a place so I can be immersed in the people and the culture
Hmm
and whatever that means. Other than
Yeah.
sleeping outside, I'm good for, right?
Yeah, no, you're not sleeping outside. So I tell people, even though I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah, I've
I
seen
may have
it.
scared
It's
folks a
like
little
a
bit. I'm like, there
no,
could be
it's a cabin.
scorpions. It's nice.
It's
It's comfortable. I
like a
pride
no.
myself on being super clean. Like,
Yeah, girl, you got it. Two questions. Last question is, what advice do you have for somebody who's listening to this podcast and is thinking about repatriating somewhere across the African diaspora? What advice, whether it's
mhm.
practical or personal or spiritual, would you give somebody who's thinking about taking this journey?
I would say trust yourself because I think we all got the call to come back to nature because we're the stewards of the land. And I think part of the reason we're seeing so much like destruction on a global level is because we're so disconnected from nature. So like trust that calling, whatever it is that's telling you like get back, whether it's like put your feet on the ground, trust it. If you're interested in going to a space, go and visit. Even if you're scared, like see who's out there, see who's connected already to that land. Like even if you have to initially kind of get your feet wet, even though I don't recommend resorts or any of that stuff, but if that's what you need to kind of get your feet wet,
That's your entryway, right?
then do it. Trust yourself and like get connected to the land, plant your feet, go barefoot somewhere on some
Mm,
sand, some soil, and just see what comes up for you. And then
mm.
once you decide to make that move, arrive with humility and give yourself space. Recognize that like the matrix is not a location, the matrix is actually inside of you.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta release yourself from that. Yeah, I love that. Great advice. I'm coming down. I just gotta get some dates, and I'm super excited. Where can people find you online if they're wanting to come visit it, they want to hear a little bit more about your story, your business? Where can folks find you in the interweb?
Yeah. So definitely you can go to nuguchu.com. That's Nuguchu.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My own like account that I use is sexy_sustainability.
Hey,
You could find me at that account. That's kind of where I just kind of like talk about like low waste living and minimalism, and I kind of share some of my experience down into space. Nuguchu.hn is also the Instagram specifically for the space.
all right, lovely talking with you. Thank y'all, listeners. This has been the first episode. You can look forward to
Yeah.
more. We're interviewing Black people across the diaspora about going back to their country of origin and heritage. So thank you so much, Louisa. Stay tuned.